I don't hear words.
Hey, welcome back. Well, they're not exactly billable hours, but the time Fort Worth attorney Tim Hoke spends with his children are absolutely priceless. He has some great ideas in this little book and another one in the works. 50 Rules for Sons, 50 Rules for Daughters coming up as well. So what you're really trying to teach parents how to do is talk to their teenage son or daughter, or whatever age they are, without being an idiot.
Well, yeah, and I've learned from a lot of experience in that regard. I have a lot of experience in that regard. I wrote the book. The book was born of a project that I did when my son graduated 2 years ago. I sat down to write him a letter, and I started thinking about all the things that I had not told him over the years. So I thought as a lawyer, I thought I better write a little disclaimer here. So I put together 50 rules. It started as 10 rules, and then went to 20, and then grew to 50. And I put that together for him. And then when my daughter graduated in May, this past May, I did it for her. But as a result of that, they result from having conversations with your kids.
And one of the things when you're talking about conversations is don't join a conversation. You give a great illustration of this. Unless you're invited into that conversation. It's okay to be an observer to their conversations between them and their friends.
Right. Don't intrude. You know, I have my daughter who's 15. I was carpooling her and some friends one day, and we were driving to school, and they were in the back seat talking amongst themselves, and I decided I would and I was listening to them, and I thought I'd throw in my 2 cents, you know. That's a bad idea. Right. They don't want you to be involved in their conversations.
It's got to be mortifying when Dad weighs in with some of that wisdom. Don't interrupt and don't argue. You say a conversation, it's not a conversation, it's a lecture if you get into the point where you're, and one of the things I think I finally learned with our kids was not to say, you know what you ought to do is.
Yes, or this is another one that I hear quite often. What did you do that for?
Right.
That's not a conversation. That's an inquisition.
And you also say that in a lot of cases, if you just give them enough time and it's almost like being a therapist. The therapist doesn't give you the answer. The therapist waits for you to come to the conclusion, and eventually that teenager is smart enough to figure out the right answer.
Precisely. The 3 keys to, I think, conversations with your kids: number 1, smile at them. Don't approach a conversation with a frown or with some disgruntled look.
Yeah.
Every time you see your child, smile at them. Number 2, give them space. When I come home from work at the end of the day, I need some time to decompress. Kids are the same way, especially when you're getting ready to start school. Mm-hmm. They need some time to sort of gather their thoughts. Don't crush them. Don't smother them. That's the second rule. And then the third rule is what you just mentioned. Be quiet. Just listen.
Right, right. Let's pick one, and I'm going to pick a random bit of wisdom here. Always carry cash.
Always
when you send
carry
your
cash.
Always carry some cash, right?
A little cash. It never hurts. You know, I went on a trip a while back, and I was in Missouri in the middle of nowhere, and I got stuck in the mud, and a tow truck driver came along, and all he wanted was cash.
Right.
There's a bunch of lessons just like that in the book.
Yeah.
So they're practical. They're not sage exactly, but they're very practical lessons.
Yeah, they really are, and you want to send your kids out the door with that, and it's amazing kind of in the rush of the day with, soccer practice and tests at school, how much you don't get around to saying until your kid has literally got 1 foot out the door going off to college or going off to live the rest of his or her life.
Exactly. You know, my son was going away, and I was almost writing those as he went out the door.
Yeah.
So it gets crazier in this time.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's great advice, and we appreciate it. 50 Rules for Sons and more wisdom coming out soon. 50 Rules for Daughters. Can't wait to have you back and talk about some of those as well.